Hello and welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio with Shane, Paris, and I am Scott. We're just going to say live but we're not live. This is recording, so thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. But we're on our remote locations, hidden in the wilderness, because we're not hiding. I'm kidding, guys. Welcome to the podcast. We're excited to be here. Do not forget about our current YouTube contest going on. Get over there, Prepper Talk Radio. Make sure you're following it. Turn on the notifications. We're giving away a Jase case. That's a medical antibiotic kit. It comes with 5 prescriptions when we break 1,000 subscribers over there. But you've also got to be in our group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance, to qualify for that win. Also, there's 5 ounces of silver that's going to be given away in that contest as well. Shane's got that. You can see that right there. Shiny 5 ounces.
Yeah.
So awesome. Today, roughly worth about $120. Tomorrow could be 300,000. You never know with the economy and the way it's going. So make sure you hit that subscribe, turn on notifications. We're excited to have you here because tonight we're going to talk about trigger words, I guess you could say. Not the kind that make you want to go cry and need a safe space. I'm talking about words to listen to when you hear a politician speak, when you hear the World Economic Forum start discussing things, right? When you're watching a movie and you hear something, you go, that doesn't sit well. Oftentimes, they're coded messages to try to let us know what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think part of that is they're trying to use, people try to use big words to confuse people, in general, make people think that they're smart, right? Because they're using these big words. And in many cases, that is true. But so we're going to try and educate you, and as well as ourselves. I'm going to be quizzing these guys on some words, see if they know some of the words that I'm going to throw out there. But yeah, absolutely, they are. I don't know if I'd call them trigger words, but they are keywords that you will probably hear more and more once we say some of these words. They may just pop up in your conversations or just in things you're hearing online or the news or whatever. And if they do, then maybe a little red flag should pop up and give you a little warning. Oh, pay attention. This is an important word. This may not mean what you think it means.
Mm-hmm.
Well, exactly. And some of the things, like just to go a few, everyone should know what these are, but you've probably heard the term global citizen. There's one. It's your global citizen. It's your responsibility as a global citizen. They're talking about when we pull the one world government, that's what you're going to be. And they're trying to create a mindset already that you're a happy citizen under their new regime.
And they're trying to put a little guilt trip on you as well, right? If you're not thinking about the entire world as a community, and what's the word part of community? Communism, right? Global citizenry. The most important thing is individual rights, not group rights. And so, but as a global citizen, you need to be concerned about others other than yourself. So it makes they're trying to make you feel selfish, right? Oh, you're being selfish. You need to do this for the entire world, not just for yourself. This is for everybody. Go ahead.
Or anything that would divide into a group identity or a group persona. For example, if you identify yourself as a particular group, that's your identity now. That's not your individual rights or frankly, more importantly, your individual responsibilities to be able to be a sovereign individual and recognize that you are created in the image of God to act and have the pursuit of life, happiness, liberty, and property. So when we think, how many in the last 2-3 years, this medical issue that came up, how many times were we told, do it for the betterment of your neighbors. Do it for your neighbors.
For grandma.
Well, it's funny because like 20, 30, 40 years ago, I remember the phrase around the dinner table all the time. There are starving children in Africa. Eat your veggies, right? And it's funny because that's the same mindset, the same theory. Like, hey, like then it was a guilt trip to eat your broccoli.
It's a bit of a brainwashing method as well.
And now they've realized, hey, that worked really well. Let's use that same technique on a global scale. Oh, well, you have to help this group over here because it's your responsibility.
And I think all of this is another word that I think ties in there. and is maybe the larger group is the word priming. You'll probably hear that a lot. It's another form of mind control, called priming, and that's kind of what they're doing with these words. Global citizen, they're priming you to, they're essentially flooding you with these different words, which you don't necessarily know what they mean, and so maybe it's a little traumatic. And then they tell you what it means when it may actually mean something else.
Yeah, and that's how they talk. I don't know if how many of you who are listening are aware of something called subtle speech, but one of the things that they do is they'll use a word that could mean multiple things as like a password, keyword, secret word, something or another, and it will mean one thing or they'll mean one thing when it means another. Like, for example, progressive. Who doesn't want progress? Right. Who doesn't want to move forward in life? Who doesn't want to have the opportunity to be better and do better and to grow?
Well, and we're taught as Christians, we need to progress daily towards becoming like Jesus.
Right? So progression is something that's good. Like, we all know that. And so they've used it against us now that if you want to be a progressive, you've got to be this completely off. You have to, there's a certain ideology that you have to embrace. Otherwise, you're not, in part of progress. You're impeding progress. In fact, you're
an enemy in progress.
You're an enemy. We need to battle you, and we need to fight you, and we need to go against you. And it's like, whoa.
Okay. Here's another set of words just like that: unity, equality, equity, and inequity. Right?
Oh yeah.
Those are all along the same lines. Who doesn't want unity? Right? It sounds great. Who doesn't want equality? It sounds good, but it depends on the context it's being used in, especially equity. Right? They, air quotes, want equality of outcome, not equality of choice or equality of opportunity. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So those should be red flag warnings to you when you hear those words.
And just to kind of define that a little bit easier, it's like, if I don't do anything, I still get the same reward as the guy who works his butt off.
Exactly.
That's equality of outcome. Equality of opportunity is you and I are both sitting in the same classroom or in the same work environment or in the same neighborhood. We both have the same opportunity to go out and find a job, to go out and start a business, to go out and build something for ourselves. I just did on my financial channel, I just did a thing today, a TikTok or whatever, a little reel short on 86% of millionaires are self-made. What that gives me hope is that you can do it. Like 86% of people did it. They learned the skill set and they did it. That's equality of opportunity.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yes, there's a chance.
Right? And that's the thing is there's a chance. But when they use words of inequity, they're saying we're going to strip those chances and just give everybody the same outcomes.
Exactly. We're going to take away from you to give to someone else.
Oh, just because you have access to the internet and can learn all these things isn't going to matter anymore, because now here's your paycheck. Here's your government cell phone. Here's your government issued internet. And it's all subpar, and you can only access the things they want you to access, right? That's where we're headed, and that's why we're bringing up these terms. I mean, and this isn't new. This has been around thousands of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is in 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Paris, you brought that up before we hit record, and I was just like, holy crap, that is exactly where we are in the world. I even have, what's ironic is I even have a sister-in-law giving birth right now. She's literally in travail with child.
Wow.
Right? So it hits, and those of you guys listening, like, it hits. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see we've got the full quotes that we throw up, but you can watch and understand and see everything we're showing. But when they say peace and safety, or when they say a better society, when they say equity and unity, it's their version of it, not the version that you've grown up listening to or understanding or
God's
studying,
version, right?
Or God's version, most importantly, right? It's their version. So what is their version, right? Well,
I've got some more words that fit in with their version.
real quick, before we leave that scripture, I just want to confirm. Well, I just looked up a quote real fast because I didn't remember who it was from, but Benjamin Franklin apparently said it. He says, those that are willing to trade their freedom for safety are worthy deserve neither liberty nor safety. And so that's part of that whole thing about the words matter. Words not only matter to God and to creation, because if you read the scriptures, how did he create the earth?
He spoke it
with his word. He spoke it with the word. So the power of the word is critical. So too, though, if the devil imitates, mocks, and creates, the globalists know that. Like, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. But you have to realize that these globalists, these malevolent, how do you say it?
Malevolent
people. They worship the devil. They worship the devil, and they love him. And so they're going for you have to remember their religion,
which means they do believe in God.
Yeah. So they're, the reality is that they're like, wait a minute, words matter. So we're going to use words that matter too. And so that's important for you to realize that when you hear a speech and some global leaders like, yeah, we need peace, we need safety, do it for there was literally a political leader that said, your freedom is infringing upon my safety. And I think that was a guy with the initials MR, who's a congressman out of Utah.
That was MR out of Utah. And that is why he needs to be removed from office. That is why, like, you have to listen to your politicians to see what they're really saying. It's funny because for a long time, I got past this point of caring, and I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to listen to any of it anymore. I'm done. And then I realized that was a big mistake. And so now I'm starting to pay attention. Well, not now. For the last 5 years, I'm starting to pay attention a lot better and understanding what they're saying. Not just political leaders, and world leaders, but like corporate leaders. Anyone that's part of a major corporation, even if it's a 50c3, like, pay attention to what they're saying and what they're connected to. And you'll start seeing between the lines the meanings of the things that they're saying.
Especially the words we've just been talking about, and the word global. If the word global is in there somewhere, that they're signed on to a larger, we'll call it a conspiracy.
Pushing the one world religion,
pushing agendas, and we'll get into that as well. I mean, those are some of the words I've got on my list as well. But they've signed on to those agendas. Absolutely.
I think another thing that is really coming out a lot lately is that unless you're an expert or you have some kind of degree behind your name, nobody wants to believe that you have any say at all.
Yeah.
Like, you're an idiot unless you're a PhD, or you're an idiot. It's like, wait a minute, I'm an intelligent individual that can ration and reason and can figure things out. You're telling me, like, for example, I love the video. I haven't watched it yet entirely, but the What is a Woman by Matt Walsh. And he literally asks people, what is a woman? They're like, well, unless you're an expert in biology, or unless you're an expert as a woman, you can't answer that question properly. And he totally tongue ties him. But this idea that you have to be an expert actually started with the progressives in our government, who decided to create, from a constitutional state, took us into what is called an administrative situation, where now all of you can't, we know what environment would help the environment, but unless the EPA tells you what to do, you can't do it. Like, we know what is just and what is true and right, but unless the FBI or the Department of Justice tells you, then you can't do it, or you can or can't do it. Like, all these experts are been assigned these roles in our administrative government to administrate these things. So if you can't, and how did this happen actually this last season with all this medical problems, is that when they couldn't create a law to mandate a certain person take a certain thing in their arm, they used, what did they use? They used the department, an administrative department, OSHA, wasn't it? They used OSHA.
Yes, it was OSHA. Yeah, it was OSHA.
They used OSHA to mandate companies to enforce that. So they couldn't get a law together. But instead they used experts through an administrative process to get the job done. They went around the Constitution, and that was not good. So those are the things to watch out for.
Yeah, there's a term, and I forget what it's called, but it has something to do with a white coat syndrome, right? Having those who have the lab coats, who wear the white coats, who are the ones who are the doctors and the important people, right? You look important, you get scientists because you're wearing a white lab coat. And there is a term about that. I'll have to remember that, or if somebody wants to put it in the comments, we'll have a little discussion on that too. But yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. It's like the other day I was at the gym, and a guy went into a seizure. epileptic seizure. And I'm like, oh, I know what this is. And I was starting to go over there, and this huge group surrounded him. And I'm like, someone in there knows what's going on and is going to help. And then all of a sudden, everybody comes running out and like, is there a doctor? Is there a doctor? Is there a doctor? And they're not loud enough that anyone can hear them. They're not going up to the PA to get, like, they're just in that corner of the gym. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And one of my scouts, I'm so proud. One of my scouts, Jake, ran to the front, got on the PA. He didn't even work there. He like grabbed the lady at the front desk. He's like, get on the PA, ask for a doctor. And then he's like, and he had at the same time, his girlfriend, he got her on the phone calling 911. And I'm like, this guy's going to be fine. It's an epileptic seizure. And what happened? He came out of it. You just had to hold him on his side. And one guy was like, grab his tongue. And I'm like, don't put your hand in his mouth. He'll bite your fingers off, dummy. And he's like, oh, okay. But it was interesting because people lose it, but they're running for the expert, a doctor. You know how many doctors responded in there?
None.
I saw 3 people.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm a doctor. You know how many of them were medical doctors? 0.
Oh, geez. So
you can't just say, is there a doctor anymore? Right? It used to mean something specific. Now it's like, well, how many thousand? Advertising all day online. Get your doctorate in business administration. Get your doctorate in organizational development and leadership. And I'm like, you can prosper by degrees in the devil's system. Like, that's the whole point of it. But it's college degrees, a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorates, to become the expert that can be then used by these organizations, right? You've got,
in other words, if someone's
clear and aware,
if someone's asking for a doctor, and you're not an actual medical doctor, don't raise your hand.
Right?
Yeah, seriously.
It's so many times. It's so funny because it's like I've got family members that are doctors, neither of which are medical doctors. And when someone said, "Is there a doctor?" they're like, "Oh, I'm a doctor." And it's like, can you go address a medical emergency? Well, no. Then put your hand down, like, because that's historically that's what it's meant, right? But that's what we're talking about is how they'll change the context or the meaning of something over time. Gay used to just mean happy. Well, they changed the meaning of over time, right? So everything has a new meanings, like so many just crazy new meanings or context. You have to understand the context that it's delivered in so that you can then understand the meaning. Give us some of the other words that you've got.
Yeah, I guess
I want to make sure we cover that.
Yeah, keeping along the same kind of medical lines there. A few words that I'm sure you've heard. You've heard biometrics. You've heard biotechnology or biotech. But have you heard biodigital convergence? Have you heard of transhumanism? Have you heard of Internet of Bodies? Those are all hot buttons right now that are where the future is headed.
Right.
If enough time is allowed, right? If there's enough time to actually integrate technology into one's body, that's what essentially biodigital convergence and transhumanism. I mean, they're slightly different meanings, and I'm not good enough to identify those, but they're definitely hot words that I hear on a regular basis.
So biodigital convergence, my understanding, is being able to use the biodigital, like the organic matter, human, animal, whatever, to transfer or program or move digital data, right?
Well, yes, it's kind of tied with the Internet of Bodies, where Internet of Bodies is that every living organism is to be tracked and traced and counted and inventoried, and biodigital convergence is, I guess, converging that with it's human, it's augmentation, it's augmenting the body. I guess that's also what transhumanism is, putting brains in chips, like we've heard those names by esteemed authorities, right?
Right.
If anyone's an authority, someone who doesn't have a degree in something, right? Like several people we know who.
Well, for example, what's that? Greta Thornburg or whatever. They made her a false authority.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is as I saw an interview recently with her, and she just completely melted down on the interview, and they cut it. And the follow up was, what if she's just been used this entire time? Which I'm like, duh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the person that was giving the speech was pointing out the fact that she has all the characteristics of fetal alcohol syndrome, which makes someone extremely malleable and manipulatable. And so I'm like, oh man, that poor kid dealt a bad hand to begin with, but now pushed through all this stuff. You know, all of us have programming being hit on us all the time. What you listen to, what you read, what you watch, it's all going. It's it used to be you'd get the news once a day, 5 o'clock at night, and then it became 5 and 9. Then it was news on the hour, and now it's news on the minute. Stay tuned in all day long, right? Turn on all your notifications so we can tell you what you need to think and believe and act upon and not act upon, and let us just do, because
so there's a lot of
capable to do it yourself.
There's a lot of right now, and I'll be honest with you, who wouldn't want, if you were in battle, for example, and you lost your leg, who wouldn't want to have some really cool biometric whatever leg that you can attach and actually use
that you can use with your control with your brain waves, right?
Yeah, exactly.
BCI, brain computer interface. That's the next thing.
Those are all fantastic things. But then when I was watching, I don't know if you guys have watched like The Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett and some of these other things where people actually modify themselves so they can have superhuman capacities and abilities. And so that's kind of where I'm like, wait a minute, what are they promoting here? Is this just something to give these guys who've really had given their life, given parts of their body to the freedom of our country, to give them a hope and a chance for something, reasonable again? Or is this some way to get us? And I totally want to continue the science for that purpose. But what makes me nervous is that, what if somebody's like, well, I want to be able to see, 5 miles away. I want to be able to have a bionic arm, like, the Winter Soldier. I want to be able to have all these, these extra special powers. And then you start getting those things into the hands of the wrong people, so to speak. And now we're in big trouble. And so that's kind of where you've got to have that balance of, are we morally and ethically capable of having these types of technologies available to us? Because the reality is that if electricity flows through all of us. That's what guides and directs all of the impulses from our brain to our whatever limb we're trying to have. And so can we biometrically, electronically mimic that? Or I think that the science is there. I think with these transhuman issues and the ability to be able to, I've seen these, scientists who show that these arms grabbing things, they can literally program it and these robots that are literally artificial intelligence that are almost sentient beings on their own, which is really scary. And so when you start to get, the old movie, what is that movie? The Singularity, all that stuff is really becoming more and more real as we move along this timeline of this, with this stuff that's coming out. And so it's just, to me, it's something to be aware of, to be ready for, and to say, wait a minute, when the time comes that we've pushed the envelope too far, that we can stand and say, look, that's too far with that. We still need to stay human beings. Well, and we need to, be human still.
Yes. And this isn't new. Like, this isn't something that they just started talking about. 1973, season 1, episode 1 came out.
The Bionic Man.
$6 million man. Lee Majors, the Bionic Man.
And then look at Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Avengers.
All of those things.
I forget the characters in there that been modified, but
they push all this tech integration into people. And they're like, oh, it's going to do fantastic things. Johnny Mnemonic, right? We talked about that one of our last episodes. So none of this is new, but like, let's go back to the words. Like, what do things mean? There's natural, there's liberty, there's real, and then there's everything that Satan wants to do is a mimic of what God has done. And it doesn't do the same thing. It mocks it and creates his own version, right? It's a blasphemy. Why are they trying to cut down the population of the world?
Yeah. And that's on my list as well. But yeah, of course, my thought goes to currency and fiat currency, right? Our money used to be money. Our currency used to be money. So those are words on my list. I don't know if we want to switch topics already, right? And go into the financial world.
Just words. It's the same topic because it's all about words.
Yeah, it's just
wordplay.
Yeah, so obviously there's money and there's currency. And everybody still continues to call the dollars we have in our wallets money, which is not. It's currency.
It's programming.
It is, absolutely. And I still hear it all the time with people I know better, because only gold and silver are money, and it says that in our Constitution as well.
Absolutely.
So by using the words correctly, we have a better understanding, or a correct understanding, of what money is and what currency is, the difference between the two, and how to better use them, and how to generate wealth, and how to generate debt, how to stay out of debt, and all those types of things. But if money is money and it's all the same, you're not going to know the difference.
Right.
And those lines have been very well confused over the decades.
Well, speaking of money, for those of you guys listening that do have money and want something cool, make sure you guys go check out blackbeardfire.com. We've got a promo code for you, Prepper Talk. It's going to save you 10%. I'm holding up, if you're watching on the YouTube, I'm holding up my Pirate's Plunder. It's got some of the most amazing stuff. And I'll be honest, my favorite fire starter came with this kit. Their ferro rod is phenomenal.
Really?
It is phenomenal. I'm thoroughly impressed, because you can buy them all over the place, and some are good, some are bad, some are ugly. But we're trying to light a fire in you to actually go and do some research and understand the things that are coming around you. But when survival situation comes, make sure you've got at least something to start a fire. That's your shelter is the most important thing, and a fire is shelter. So head on over to blackbeardfire.com, use the promo code PrepperTalk. It'll save 10% on everything you order site-wide. Phenomenal. Nice. I love it. I even have their the newest product to test out, which I'm super excited, is their fire plugs. Boom, boom, boom.
Cool. Nice.
Put those in every kit, man. I'm telling you.
You need to get me some of those.
Incoming video reviewing those things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing real quick, is we're starting to do a lot more reviews, and which you'll see out shortly on our various different channels.
What's funny is you go back in time and you see certain things that were used a certain way, and you see how they've adjusted, like words have adjusted over time to mean different things. And now certain words can't be said because it's too terrifying to hear that word in society, or it's too hard to understand what the meaning is, right? But the one world government, all the people who are in that process, in that conglomerate of people trying to make that happen, they are conspiring against you and me, the average Joe, right? And what they're trying to do is make us go along. They're also trying to cull the population, right? They say it's responsible of you to have less kids and to have a smaller carbon footprint, right? Less use on their things, but they're also reducing and eliminating future competition to their mission. That's why they're trying to bring the population down. So if you're a fertile myrtle and you guys want to have more kids, go have more kids and teach them the right things, right? Teach them how to be responsible God's way. Teach them how to be loving God's way, but also teach them how to be the hardest hitting, liberty-minded people in the world, so that we can all stay free for future generations.
I think it's awesome to think about. If you really think about all the liberals and progressives and the weird things they're doing, and if they don't want to be married and have kids, and every patriot, every conservative, everybody there's a real need for people out there to really be creative and to consider the less fortunate. And that's part of what the liberal, a good liberal would do is kind of say, hey, wait a minute, the patriarchy is a little bit too high, or the organization, the order is a little bit too much. Let's make sure that it's not getting into tyranny. But if we all had like 5 or 6 kids and they had 0, within 2 or 3 generations, they'd be wiped out. So that's a great idea. Let's go do it.
But the problem is they're manipulating our kids into becoming progressive liberals, right?
Yep.
That's what they're trying to do. And we need to stop letting the media, stop letting everything else bleed into our children's lives and affect their mind. I mean, they're the most, right? My kids are both 5 and 4 right now. That's as malleable as they come. And so we're having conversations on the daily, what things mean and what things that they're exposed to mean and whether they're right or wrong. And it's annoying.
Yeah. But here's something. Sorry. Here's something along the same lines that I'm extremely concerned about is AI, right? This new Chat GPT, right? That I think will eventually combine with all this biodigital convergence and transhumanism to make so you don't even have to make choices anymore, right? You just go to AI, the all powerful, and I've heard that there is a group that creating their own God computer, right? And that's going to be their religion.
Wow.
And that's another thing we could talk about, but not even having to do research. You just go say, I need a report on this, or I need this information, and the AI spits it out to you. And it's not real AI. I don't think we'll ever get there, but that's what they're calling it. And eventually, you know, we don't even have to have the smarts to even do research, right? It'll eventually go to that chip in our head that we'll think and we'll have the knowledge in our head. That's their goal. That's what they're shooting for. So AI is a big part of that.
Kind of reminds me of that movie Wall-E that was all the computers around the world, and human beings were just lazy fat slobs that didn't do anything but scoot around on their hover lounge chairs, you know.
Yeah.
You know, artificial intelligence, if you really think about the scriptures, that intelligence is the glory of God is intelligence, what that teaches us. So anything that's counterfeit to that, or anything that's imitation of that, or fool's gold is the opposite of real gold. Artificial means not real. Artificial means created or man-made. So artificial intelligence to me is the opposite of the glory of God, which is true, pure intelligence that is revealed to us from divine sources through things like prayer and the spirit of revelation and the spirit of prophecy, which are real things that we can tap into if we're true and faithful to our covenants and the things that we promised to God to do. But then if you think about artificial intelligence being man's desire or influenced by the enemy to create a pathway where we don't need God anymore. We don't need to have him anymore because we have our own intelligence. We've created the way to have everything. And it just boils back to the Tower of Babel for me. You know, in the Tower of Babel, everybody was conspiring together to go against God and create a society that didn't need him. And so God was like, well, I'm going to confuse all your languages so that you guys can't communicate with one another. Well,
right.
Artificial intelligence, the computer, the internet, the ability to translate immediately, like in real time from one language to another. We're at the point now where we've almost got another one world language, and God may repeat his whole Tower of Babel scenario, you know, by doing something soon, which I know we all know if you follow the scriptures, especially in the book of Revelations, it does talk about him doing something soon, and that peace and safety, because destruction follows that. So you're absolutely right, Shane. Artificial intelligence to me is definitely an Now am I going to use it for a little while? Sure, probably. You know, I'll take advantage of it for a little while in business as I'm trying to do my business. But I have to be careful because you don't want to get too embedded in that.
Well, if you're aware, then you know you can make the right decisions. But personally, I'm going to stay away from that. And I had another thought. Now it's escaped me, but it was along those same lines as well. No, of course. But no, here's what I was going to say is it's been my thought recently that you know we're looking for signs of the times. We're waiting for things to happen to indicate where we're at in this timeline of the book of Revelations and other scripture and such. And I'm tending toward the Antichrist being an AI machine, right? I mean, that's a possibility, right? Everybody's going to worship this machine that has all supposedly all knowledge, right? So that's what I was going to say.
I definitely think that it could be just part of.
It's definitely part of the plan.
Part of the organization, right? Part of Satan's kingdom for sure. You know, it reminds me of those books. You probably all read these as a kid. I don't know if they still have them. The Choose Your Own Adventure series books.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
Right. Those were so awesome. And now it's like, you don't need to make a choice anymore. Just do what we tell you to do, or do what the AI tells you to do. You don't have to think about it, stress about it. You know, we are just inundated all the time, but we don't have to be.
But see, here's something that came up to me recently that is along those same lines. Remember the game Pac-Man?
Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
Do you know what PAC stands for?
Oh, wow.
Program and Control.
Interesting.
Program and Control, Pac-Man. So what was the game about? You went around a maze that was already there. You really didn't have any freedom. You had to follow the maze. The game itself is the narrative, right? The game created the narrative. You could go out one side, but you always came right back in the other side. There was no escape from the system, right?
Interesting.
And so I see that as kind of the start, or one of the starts of kind of the Matrix type system, right?
Interesting.
The Pac-Man. So I found that was brought up to me a couple of days ago in the podcast I was listening to. So I thought that was incredibly insightful, and I'm going to be digging more into learning about that. But I guess also kind of falling on those same lines, you know, the words we hear all the time that I don't know if we should even mention on here, because we're going to get a banner across the bottom, right, that says, for the real truth, click here. This is where the authorities here. Here's the you know,
fact checkers.
Exactly.
Gone crazy.
And I think you guys know what those are. You know, Great Reset, New World Order. They're creating a one world church with 3 different denominations in it. You know, and that is
what's interesting. What's interesting is that they said in there that we're trying to gather all of the children of Abraham under one roof.
Yes.
And so if your religious leaders are talking about being a child of Abraham, maybe you ought to perk up your ear and say, wait a minute, because even religious leaders are going to be prone. In fact, one of the I've heard religious leaders say, you know, it's us religious leaders that are going to really be the influence on people to be able to follow these things and move forward with, whether it's taking, you know, more shots in our arm, or whether it's following along. People. Yeah. They've said that very clearly in some of the religious circles I've heard. And it's like, I know what those with eyes to see will see, and those with ears to hear will hear.
And if not, then you'll just go right along with it.
And with that, I think that is probably where we're going to have to close, because we've got another event coming
about
here.
6 o'clock.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Pay attention. Please comment below the words that you think we should all be watching out for. Right. We're going to call them the trigger words from now on. The words to help you understand that they're trying to pull something over on you. Pay attention, guys. You've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio with Scott, Shane, and Paris, and we are grateful that you're listening, grateful that you're part of the community. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Make sure you join us on YouTube and in our Facebook group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. And guys, if you don't already have your Jase case, your emergency antibiotics, make sure you go to Jase Medical, JASE medical.com. Get on their website, order your kit. Comes with 5 emergency antibiotics, and you can get $10 off by using the promo code PrepperTalk. Guys, you've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio. We are radio for the ready-minded. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode.